Pellegrino. Pellegrino's great. This one's for you. Of them all, Caspa in the flesh, and it's time for a review of Zach Bryan, the great American bar scene. Oklahoma country singer-songwriter Zach Bryan is back, and honestly, he has certainly made a name for himself. And in my honest opinion, one of the greatest country artists of this decade. And he's been doing it for a while now, playing by his own rules, which he actually does touch on later on in this album, which we will get into, and actually bring some meaningful substance to the table, in opposed to what you would get with the mainstream country, how it doesn't really have much substance, much backbone, just something for a quick stream, then it's out of here. But that's not to say he's the only one doing it. Of course, you have Sturgill Simpson, Adeem the Artist, who has dropped one of the greatest country albums I've probably heard in a long time, along with Chris Stapleton, Sturgill Simpson, and also Beyonce with her Cowboy Carter album, which you could say is like a mix of genres, but it's mostly country based. And even Zach Bryan, I would say, not entirely country. There are some Heartland rock songs on here. And he certainly has had a great output from his probably most ambitious album, his 2002 release, American Heartbreak, which is a 2-hour, 1-minute monster, along with his self-titled album, which I reviewed very positively, was one of my favorite albums of that year, and honestly one of the best country albums I heard that year. And there were some mixing flaws on there, not as diverse, but I cannot deny how gripping the lyrics were, how so much emotion has been put into Zach's writing. And what really drew me in was his approach to songwriting, his approach to drawing an emotion, how he could have the instrumentation even playing into his emotions as well. And this time around, we are getting bigger names like John Mayer, the legendary Boss, Bruce Springsteen. And if you've been listening to Zach for a while, you will notice that there have been some intros lately, kind of like a monologue. And I feel this one definitely does correlate to the record. It just doesn't feel like another intro or another interlude. It actually ties into the album. Like being fortunate enough to see the future of having kids, living a long life, losing someone, and then talking to ghosts, spending time in the bar, which honestly, with this album being called Great American Bar Scene, we're definitely getting a lot of thematic tie-ins with that. And while the strummed-back Mechanical Bull may not be breaking any new ground sonically, Zach is without a doubt dropping some very great songwriting here. Very heartfelt and different parts of emotion. Very heartfelt from all types of perspectives. Whether he's a retired bull rider on Mechanical Bull, that speaks on reflecting on family and struggling to find the authenticity in a world that he sees as fraudulent, which also, I might add, does play a role later on in this album with the closer, Bathwater. Whereas diving deeper into the LP, you see the growth, you see how everyone wants to put on a front and a facade, and Ryan is making sure he does not go down that path. So you're really getting a mix of fiction and also reality woven in as well. So as I alluded to earlier, where Ryan not only knows how to pull emotion from lyrics, but also instrumentation as well. Like, for example, on Great American Bar Scene, which has echoed pedal steel, blazing harmonica, and you could hear the sound, you could hear the atmosphere, and you hear the sounds, you hear the atmosphere of the bar. From the pool, knocking into the 8-ball, the crowd, sharing depictions on how this character lost to a bookie, and trying to enact revenge, which really doesn't work in their favor. And there's also super graphic imagery as well within the lyrics, where it shows visions of a friend being apprehended by the police, cuffed with so much force that the blood starts leaking from his wrist. There's also moments where Zach does share from his personal life, like on 28, which is a heart-wrenching ballad on just wanting to feel loved on your birthday, where being deprived of love and the only time that you would ask for love is on your 28th birthday, which is a passionate string-kissed tearjerker. The weeping strings, the piano keys, and dramatic drums with his vocals just accompany the heartfelt lyrics with so much anguish and despair. Like, he really has a knack for bringing the artist into a place of sorrow and absolute empathy, where we could go from being in a bar and raising up our glasses and waving back and forth to just getting revved up on American Nights, which is an absolute bar banger with big drums, nice guitar grooves, super infectious hook, and also, again, using the sound effects to create an atmosphere where you hear the beer cracking open, some big group chants. The whole thing just creates an all-out bar anthem. So yeah, he definitely keeps the bar theme within the album, which is very consistent, or either speaking on family, which he does see the bar as, because if you notice, there's also himself or the character always trailing back to the bar, like something surrounding it or involving it, or even alcohol for that matter. And also, if you listen to the last album, you will notice how alcoholism and family does run very rampant in his lyrics, and also relationships as well. So I feel alcoholism, family, the bar, it all just pieces together so well. And tragically too. Or shit getting real at a bar with family on Oak Island with a very unexpected twist, which is honestly the most ambitious track on this whole entire album. With a driving groove, watery guitar lines, epic horn section, and absolutely insane combination of horns, I think saxophone, wailing guitars, and pounding drums at the end. It's like post-punk revival meets outlaw country, which has got to be the most chaotic finish to not only a Zach Bryan album, but any track in outlaw country I could possibly think of. There's also Purple Gas, which shares beautiful vocal chemistry between Ryan and Noeline Hoffman, where Ryan speaks on being ambitious, not giving up, even through harsh conditions that he's confronted with. Meanwhile, like Ida, which is a beautifully anguished track, where Zach is really staying true here. And speaking on going separate ways from a friend, I feel there's a lot of symbolism here. So either he could be talking about a friend or the industry in general, but one thing's for sure, he is not changing for anyone, he is not changing his sound, and he's not going the glitzy commercial route. But if those do, if people decide to take that path, best of luck to them. Where he says, you can make it to Nashville, you can tell by one hat tilt, that shit just ain't my scene. I like out-of-tune guitars, taking jokes too far, and my bartender's extra mean. So yeah, it's definitely a conflict of emotions. So yeah, it's definitely a song that's a compelling one, and a very real one here too. I feel like this is really a definitely necessary song of keeping rustic country alive and well. And thematically, there is sharing of nostalgia with a past and massive vulnerability that shares heavy conflict, deep thoughts involving family history, which goes from resentment to reconciliation. And again, Ryan does have a knack for painting pictures that really pull at your heartstrings. And Better Days with the talk of a boat. And I do like how Ryan takes these titles, these topics, and can correlate them to other tracks within here. For example, like on Better Days with John Mayer, with the talk of a boat, how life is like a boat, and due to lack of love received from family, there was trouble within maintaining relationships, or even a relationship with God or mother, where towers where he's questioning what God is. Is he laughter heard from the walls? And also reaching out to his mother, wishing she was here to see his success. And the ascending gospel choir and his vocals really do add power and uplift that this track is definitely going for. And I will admit this album does have some rough spots, mostly due to production, songs coming off a little subpar, half-baked, or even vocal appearances that aren't really as strong or even strong from Zach. Like Way Back, I do like the sentiment of nostalgia and finding a way back home to family, but the whole thing is just slathered in way too much reverb, and I don't think the hook's as strong. And the song Memphis Blues unfortunately suffers from demo quality. But the biggest disappointment, though, I would say, is the track with Bruce Springsteen. How Bruce Springsteen is such a legend, such a huge influence to him. And I feel like on this track, Bruce, I don't want to say like he did this purposely, but the character, the grit that he once had, it's just not here. The personality is just stripped. And the vocals here are just unrecognizable. I didn't even know this is Bruce Springsteen until I had to take a second look. And the album does end strong. Pink Skies, I think, ties in beautifully to the intro where Zach is saying, if I'm lucky enough, I will have kids, teach them morals, and also know the pain of losing someone and talking to ghosts, as he is doing on this track here. So yeah, outside of a few tracks I think could have been cut, and while Zach's vocals are still in the same spot they were on the last LP, I feel the writing here is very powerful, and he is just showing his lyrical prowess, and still managing to be successful, still being very creative, and taking his stories and building them and just making them emotionally tangible consistently, which I feel he carried on greatly to this album. I'm feeling a 4 out of 5 black hearts on this album. If you've given this a listen, what did you think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? And that's it. Caspa, Gothic Ghost, Zach Ryan, American Bar Scene.